Coming to you from a studio somewhere out there. It's Enough Already Radio with Fingers Malloy and Tracy O'Connor.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome once again to another Enough Already podcast. I'm Fingers. She's Tracy. Hello, Tracy.
Hello, Fingers.
There's so much to talk about this week between the 15 people who entered the presidential race this week on the Democratic side. There's a cold snap in the country right now. Do they call it a cold snap? I don't know what they call it. The kids in the rest of the country, the Midwest, with a deep freeze. It's going to be -4 in Indianapolis on Wednesday for a high.
Wow.
Yeah, that sucks. I hate winter. The older I get, the worse it is for me.
Time to head south.
Oh, you're not kidding. But we're not going to talk about the weather here. Probably not a good idea. No, well, we can, I guess. Maybe we'll get to that later. And how I like to watch Mexican meteorologists on the Spanish channel.
Are you kidding?
Am I kidding?
All right.
Well, no, I'm not. I guess I shouldn't assume that they're meteorologists. Haven't you seen the Mexican weather girls?
No.
Oh, my gosh. They wear next to nothing.
Okay.
I mean, ridiculously short skirts and, shirts that let the girls hang out. That kind of thing. For the weather. It's the weather.
It's a different culture, Fingers.
It's true.
I remember when I was in Spain, I think it was commercials for maybe Fanta, because they're obsessed with Fanta. You have that in the Midwest, right?
Yes.
The flavored crappy soda.
Yes.
And I swear it was Fanta commercials that had topless chicks in them. And this is on in the middle of the day when I'm home eating lunch with my host family for siesta time.
Well, I mean, topless girls dancing make me want to have an orange soda.
Sure. It's like, yeah. Our cultures are very different.
They are. No, the Weather Channel women in Mexico, it's unreal. And good for them. Good for them. But let's begin with Elizabeth Warren. And this is going to be very fun to watch with the 75 people running for president on the Democratic side. They're all going to try to out crazy one another with their tax proposals, their carbon taxes, you name it. How they'll just keep dragging each other further and further to the left. Well, a wealth tax apparently is very fashionable now. So I'm sure we're going to see many candidates on the left propose their own wealth tax. Well, Elizabeth Warren came out with her version, her proposal. Tell us a little bit about it, Tracy, because I know you got the piece in front of you.
Yes, and this comes from Yahoo Finance, which I don't read Yahoo Finance typically. Do you, Fingers?
No, it's not my go-to financial website.
But without knowing anything about it, I would think Yahoo would probably lean kind of left.
Yes.
So they take an interesting tack on this. The title of the piece is 3 Problems with Elizabeth Warren's Wealth Tax Plan. So what she wants is to enact a new 2% per year household wealth tax on any income above $50 million, with an additional 1% on anything above $1 billion.
Okay.
So as this writer, let's see, what is his name? Rick Newman, who's a senior columnist at Yahoo Finance, points out, wealth is squishy, Fingers. Meaning, I guess he could have used fungible, too, but squishy, I guess, is good. So in which he points out that, I think there's this idea in people's heads that billionaires and people that have more than $50 billion in wealth have a Scrooge McDuck style room full of gold coins that they bathe in.
Yeah, that's what they do.
I mean, I do think that they believe that they just hoard this money and keep it completely outside of the system.
They see a clip of Monty Burns behind his desk and his ceiling caving in and gold coins and pearls and other treasures landing on top of him. That's what they think that the wealthy people have happened to them in this country.
Yes. So as our senior writer, Mr. Newman, points out, rich people own myriad assets, many illiquid, with valuations that can vary wildly. So he's quoting from the president of American Action Forum, Douglas Holt Eakin, who says, "You have to value everything, and I don't know what my Renoir is worth this year." So he's making the point that you're going to have agents that are trained in valuing art and properties and vehicles and all these kind of things, stock portfolios, this and that are going to have to be dispensed every year to decide who has what, tally that up, and then tax them at either 2% or 1%. This is going to be hugely time consuming. And the result will be estimated at an additional $275 billion to the Treasury every year. That doesn't even cover the debt payments.
But it gets even with all these people who, basically amass their wealth, Tracy,
right,
by screwing the poor.
Well, is it she's the originator of the "you didn't build that"?
Oh, is she?
I thought that Obama stole that from her.
Wow. No, I did not know that. But there's this obsession with income inequality on the left that I just find fascinating. You got a bunch of people that are just obsessed with income inequality. No thought going into effort inequality.
No.
Whatsoever. So you got a bunch of people who aren't doing fuck all that are running to the ballot box to try to vote people in who are going to steal other people's money in hopes that they will give it to them. And that's not immoral.
No, there's nothing immoral about that.
Because all they're doing with their money is hoarding it and rolling around in it. Like that scene from what Indecent Proposal, where they're rolling around in the money. That's what rich people do. Bunch of hoarders. They don't invest it. They just got a big room full of cash. And they actually label the room the "screwing the poor room." And that's where they keep all of their cash, their pearls, their gold coins, their paintings.
It's just unbelievable. And there's some question about the constitutionality of this. But does that matter to anybody anymore?
No.
Okay. So we won't even bother getting into why it might be unconstitutional?
It doesn't matter if it's constitutionally correct, as long as you're morally correct. That's all that matters. And it's moral to take money from billionaires because they made that money off the backs of the poor. And then we're not going to give it to the poor. That's the dirty little secret. We're going to give it to the government.
Oh, but then the government's going to give it to the poor?
In theory. But you know how that goes.
Well, yes, as this guy points out in the Yahoo Finance article, it says a wealth tax doesn't directly help those who need it. So Warren says her wealth tax would raise $2.75 trillion in tax revenue over a decade, or $275 billion a year. Thank you for doing the math, sir. Which is a lot, even by Washington standards. But taking from the rich doesn't automatically help the poor. Sure, Warren and her affiliated do-gooders could try to earmark the money for universal pre-kindergarten or education reform or Medicare for all or other programs that might help the neediest. But Congress is also prone to spending fund money, whether found money or even borrowed money on pet projects. One reason Americans increasingly distrust their government. That makes a wealth tax a tougher sell. So, I mean, this is just so funny to me. You say, let's picture this. The government figures out a way to determine exactly how much everybody's worth, even though they can't do that with members of Congress.
Right.
Accurately. I mean, the ranges are just mind-boggling. I can't remember Pelosi's, but I want to say it's something like 20 to 100 million. So we already know that they're pretty good at this. Say they get all that money and they just gave it out to the poor. Mm-hmm. What are the poor people going to do with this found money, do you think?
Blow it.
On?
Things they shouldn't be blowing their money on.
But are they going to blow it on things that are provided by the people we just took that money from?
Yes.
Because my first thought is Jeff Bezos is going to be a big target of this.
Yeah, of course.
So poor people get extra money. Is any of that going to go right back into his pockets via Amazon?
Well, yeah.
Okay. just pointing it out. I mean, I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding that these progressives have. And maybe they don't. Maybe they just pretend that they don't understand how this all works. But those people got rich because they provided services that other people wanted to have in exchange for the money that those people had. This is not a difficult concept to grasp, really. So
no, he just found all that money, Tracy.
He did.
He inherited it all, and it needs to be taken away from him. That's how it works. That's how I'm told it works. He didn't earn that.
No, he didn't build it.
No, he didn't build it. And then the other thing that's maddening about that is, look, you take a person, a small businessman, okay, and he or she, they start their business and it grows over time. And most people who run a small business, a successful small business, they're always working. Either they're at wherever their business is, they're there at the office, or when they're home. Even when they're home, they're either working or they're thinking about work nonstop. So you got people working 70 hours a week building a business, and the family sacrifices because either mom or dad, they're away working all the time. Or, the family early on, the kids are involved helping out in the business. And then you have a situation where it grows and it's this huge company and they're bringing in millions of dollars. And then the parents die and there are a bunch of lefties out there that think that all that should just be confiscated because, the kids, it wasn't their kids' business, it was the parents' business. As if the kids had no role in the growth of that business and shouldn't be able to inherit that business and take it over without being mugged by Uncle Sam. It's obscene.
Well, and also there's no thought given to the fact that business was built in order to benefit those children.
Right.
You don't think somebody that starts their own business that has a family thinks this is going to be a legacy for my family to have?
Right. On top of the people who are employed by that business, you're gonna ask so much in taxes once that person dies, in an estate tax or a wealth tax or whatever you want to call it after the person passes away, to where you can't pass that on to the kids. So then that business goes out of business, and the employees who work for it are now jobless. Mm-hmm. But thank God that Nancy Pelosi stepped in and confiscated, stole that money from that family because they had it coming anyway because income inequality,
Right.
And they built that business off the backs of the poor. Oh, fuck off. Fuck you.
How do you really feel about this?
Oh, I'm just so sick of this, and the fact that this mentality seems to be sinking in and seeping into the youth of America. And I mean, some of it I see. I understand why socialism is attractive to these kids. When they graduate 4 years from a university where they owe $80,000, $100,000 in student loans, they're bombarded with this shit. And then they go out into the workplace and they're basically slaves until they pay that damn loan off.
College debt back. Yep.
And they're like, how am I ever going to get ahead? How am I ever going to own a home when I'm spending about what it would cost on a mortgage to pay back my student loans? This isn't what I was promised. I've seen it. I've seen friends just sign the paperwork because it just doesn't seem real at the time. I've watched them do it. It's just, you're just signing your name, and and then the government will give me money to pay for school, and I'll worry about paying it back later. And when you're signing the paperwork, the money, it just doesn't. It's like using a debit card instead of actually having cash in your hand to pay for stuff. You just, here's the card. I'll swipe the card, and then at the end of the night, you're like, holy crap! Look at how much money I spent bar hopping. As opposed to actually having the cash and, counting out the 5s and the 10s, you can lose track. And so you got these kids that had $80,000 on student loans and for a useless degree.
Right. And that's the real rub, is that nobody sits down and explains to anyone, hey, this is what your major is. This is the expected income that you should receive if you get a degree in this. And this is how much debt you're going to have.
Right.
So this is how long it's going to take you to pay that off.
So I understand.
And there's an argument for tying the interest rate on those loans to that. So if you want to major in something stupid that has no economic value, your rate is going to be 20-30%.
I mean, what kind of coin do you think you're going to make with a women's studies degree?
Well, this is what cracks me up, and it reminds me of something that I saw earlier this week. There were huge rounds of layoffs at HuffPo. The entire HuffPo opinion section is gone.
Yeah.
Which I thought meant the whole site was gone, but apparently it's still there.
Right.
But I saw this tweet, and I don't know how it ended up in my timeline because I don't follow this person, and I'm not going to embarrass her by giving out her name on the show, but you can go see it on my timeline. She tweeted, like so many talented and lovely journalists, I was laid off today. If you're in the market for an opinion editor with a huge and diverse Rolodex, or a columnist with 10 years of writing about gender politics, parenthetically, she says, and a literal PhD in romantic comedies, under her belt, talk to me. Dear God. So I just tweeted, I capped that. I didn't retweet and comment. I screen capped it. And I said, I'm sorry she lost her job, but a PhD in romantic comedies. Like, I'm shocked she had a job to begin with. And I shudder to think about her student loan debt. How can you even get a PhD in romantic comedies? What does that look like? So far I watched every Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan film.
Well, you should read her dissertation on Hope Floats.
Yeah, I mean, my God. But the other thing that's funny to me about this, I think that the liberal mindset with these guys is I have to go work for another corporation, which is so funny. It's like, okay, you've got 10 years of writing, a great Rolodex. Why don't you just put up a blog site? Start writing. Keep writing. If you have an audience, will they not follow you? You can't figure out a way to monetize this?
Well, I mean, look, you're much more familiar with left-wing sites than I am, but if you look at a site like Wonket, wasn't that started by one person?
I believe so.
And then it's grown to where it is today. I mean, it's possible. It feels like it was a lot more possible to do that 10 years ago than it is now, but to me, yeah, you're right. There's this mentality. I think that in some ways it feels like the entrepreneurial spirit is dying in this country. Why wouldn't you want to go out on your own? Right.
And you're selling yourself pretty well in your little tweet. I mean, aside from the fact that you admit to have a PhD in rom-coms, but you're an editor and you've been writing for all this time. Okay, throw up a blog. Yeah. It takes less than an hour to get that up and running. Keep your audience with you. If you have an audience, then you can figure out how to monetize it.
Yeah. But it makes sense to me that these people are embracing this viewpoint that, because the system is absolutely shitting on them. But the reason why it's shitting on them is because of government. Government has made college education so expensive.
Mm-hmm. And it's also completely worthless now.
Yes. I don't know if I've got two girls, if I had boys, and I know this sounds sexist, I just know my daughters right now, and they wouldn't be interested in going to a trade school.
Right.
But trade school is the way to go now. It really
100%.
is.
Yeah, and I mean, if either one of your daughters were into hair or makeup, and I know I'm being sexist, I would tell, I'm serious. You can make a damn good living as a hairdresser or an esthetician, or
Yeah.
like I know a hairdresser, she makes over $100,000 a year.
Nice work if you can get it.
Right? And I mean, you have to have some skill, obviously, but you get to chit chat all day.
Yeah. And then there's somebody out there that thinks, well, and depending on where you live, I mean, $100,000 in New York City, not a lot of money, but if you're in the Midwest,
Right.
$100,000 a year, that's a great income.
Oh, I'm talking about somebody that lives in the Midwest that makes that as a hairdresser.
Yeah, that's and you'll have people out there saying, well, she needs to be taxed higher. It's not fair. It's not fair.
No, it's not fair. It's not fair. And I think we should go even further with the fairness fingers. And so I'm waiting to see if any of these progressives, when they're trying to outdo each other, will put forward something. We've got to come up with a catchy name for this.
Okay.
But I want to see a social justice spin on the tax brackets here.
Okay.
Based off of the gender wage gap information that we're constantly told about. You know, women make 72 cents on the dollar for every man's, and that's just the white women, fingers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because you know that black women only make 64 cents on the dollar. So my thinking is that these new tax brackets they're coming up with to go after the wealthy should reflect these numbers. So a rich white woman shouldn't have to pay that. She should only have to pay 72% of the 70%. So her top marginal rate should only be 50. And a rich black woman like, say, Oprah, hers should only be 45%.
Interesting.
If we're using this to level the playing field, let's do it right.
And then you have situations like, say, Elizabeth Warren, if she claims that she's a Native American on her taxes, then we have to have a part of the IRS that's the 23andMe branch of the IRS, where you have to send your DNA in to prove that you're worthy of that tax rate.
That seems reasonable.
Why not? We need more federal employees.
Yes.
Good God. So the question I have for you, we had this, the longest federal government shutdown in our nation's history, and it just ended.
Wait, the government was shut down?
Right. So all the lava hot takes on Twitter this week have been making the case that Trump caved, and that there was no need for the shutdown if he was just going to cave anyway. So my question to you, I have an opinion on this. I want to see if yours mirrors my opinion. Do you think that Trump caved?
I need to see how it plays out, honestly. Like in the moment, I think I can understand why people are saying, oh my God, he caved.
Right.
But I want to see what 3 weeks from now looks like.
Uh-huh.
So is this a head fake? Is there something more going on here that we're not aware of? What's the plan going forward?
There's this obsession with having a lava hot take the second something happens. And you would think by now, over the past, say, 7 days, 10 days or so, that people would learn their lesson about having a lava hot take before having all the facts in front of them. But people just can't help themselves.
No.
So that's where I was going. First of all, I mean, one of the Democrats' main objections to the shutdown, and they kept saying it over and over again, is we will not negotiate anything regarding a wall or illegal immigration until you reopen the government. So, to me, it's like, okay, listen, I've brought up a bunch of proposals that you guys were all for when it was President Obama, but all of a sudden you're against it now. What are your objections? Okay, we can't talk about it until the government's reopened. Okay, I'll reopen it again. We'll have it reopened for 3 weeks. That should be plenty of time to have the framework of an agreement put in place, including my wall funding. So I'll give it 3 weeks, and we'll see what happens then. Are we going to have? I have not. To be completely honest with you, I have not even looked to see, because this is one of the things I do agree with Speaker Pelosi on. If we never have another State of the Union address, I'm completely for that.
Right.
So God bless the Speaker for throwing that out there. But are we going to have a State of the Union address while the government's open for the next 3 weeks?
I think it's still TBD.
Okay. So is President Trump going to give the State of the Union address and make the case, say, listen, I think that we need to come together and be bipartisan. So I am agreeing with you and your positions that you had 3 years ago on illegal immigration. And let me quote Senator Schumer and lay the case before the American people that these people are hypocrites, that the only reason why that they are against any of this stuff is because the new guy in the White House isn't the same as the old guy in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see how this all plays out. What is wrong
I agree
with waiting?
And let's do it on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have these negotiations happen on camera.
Do you remember? It was early on in the Obama administration. They had some sort of ridiculous photo op meeting with when Republicans and Democrats got into a room together.
Mm-hmm. Was it the healthcare?
It may have been the healthcare stuff.
Where they had a full day summit.
Yeah,
sitting in it was like a big square.
Yeah, and wasn't
they
that
were all sitting around?
That was all televised, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, why don't we do the same thing with immigration?
I'm down for it. You know, Trump loves being on camera.
Yeah, it could be an apprentice style meeting.
Give me your idea. It's like a Shark Tank, though. That's what they should do. So everybody comes in with their little ideas.
Right.
And then we either accept your idea for securing the border or you're out.
It's just it just floors me. The Democrats have misplayed him so much these last 2 years. They could have had so much of what they wanted. The cat is not conservative.
Mm-mm.
He's a deal maker. Let me make a deal and let me get in front of a camera and smile and sign stuff saying, oh, look, made another deal, made another deal, made another deal. And Republicans would have been handcuffed. You know, he's a Republican president, and as long as he was fulfilling some of his main promises that he made during the campaign, it would have been interesting to see how difficult it would have been for Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan to push back against things that the left would have wanted that President Trump probably would have agreed to. But instead, they made him new Hitler.
He's the worst Hitler ever.
Right?
Well, that was my immediate thought when he's like, I'm reopening the government. I'm like, when are we going to get this crazy dictator we've been promised?
Yeah.
This authoritarian dude that just does whatever the hell he wants and doesn't care about anybody.
I'm not a fan of him declaring an emergency and building a wall.
Oh, that'll get crushed by a court immediately, and then they'll fight about it for 2 years.
Well, the wall will be fought over for a decade, even if they get the funding. I mean, the eminent domain lawsuits that will be filed by property owners down there. It's going to take forever for that wall to be built.
Well, it's not all going to be a wall anymore.
Oh,
Remember, now we're going to have steel slats. No, I mean, it's so pathetic to me. It's turned into this silly semantic argument.
Well, there's a debate raging, and I record another podcast, Tony Katz's podcast, Eat, Drink, Smoke, and he brought this up yesterday when we were recording. There actually probably needs to be a national debate whether we should have borders at all. Because there is a big segment of this population who apparently just doesn't want to have a border.
Then we just dissolve the whole thing.
Yeah.
How do you have a government that who do they govern over? Do we get rid of state borders too, or are those okay? At what point does a border become immoral? Is it on the national level, the state level? Am I not allowed to keep people out of my own space?
These questions need to be answered.
It just sounds like a really good way for us to absorb Mexico without having to go to war with them.
Yeah. I'm really getting sick and tired of being painted as a bigot because I am pissed off that I'm supposed to play by the rules, but other people, it's fine if they don't play by the rules. It gets really old. I was poor once. I lived in an apartment that was converted from an attic into a one-bedroom apartment. It was hot as hell. Couldn't even roll a joint in the apartment, Tracy, because your fingers would stick to the papers. And my shower was in a hallway. It wasn't in the bathroom. You walked from the living room to the bedroom, and if you looked to the right at the wall there'd be a shower curtain, and you open it up, and the shower was in the freaking hallway. I get it. I get not making a lot of money. It's insane. I don't, it's really sad that this growing trend of from people, their thought process that it's just totally cool to go to the ballot box to try to rob people who have more money than you through the point of a government gun. It's sickening to me.
Does it surprise you?
No, it doesn't. I think part of it too that surprises me, and I know I went back to the tax thing, we were talking about immigration, but I played by the rules when I was poor. And then I clawed my way out of poverty. I mean, I had parents that, I could have gone back to, and I had, help from family over the, my early 20s. And then I got a job, and I pulled myself out of that one-bedroom apartment, and I played by the rules. And yet there are people that are like, well, though, people who are poor shouldn't necessarily have to play by the rules. Mm-hmm. And they should be able to cross the border illegally, and you should just deal with it. Screw you. Oh, cool. That's great.
Well, but see, you didn't build it, so it doesn't matter to you.
Right.
And I did find Elizabeth Warren's quote.
Okay.
And it predates Obama's as far as I can tell. So there's video of her saying this. She says, you built a factory out there? Good for you. But I want to be clear. You moved your goods to market on the roads the rest of us paid for. You hired workers the rest of us paid to educate. You were safe in your factory because of police forces and fire forces that the rest of us paid for. You didn't have to worry that marauding bands would come and seize everything at your factory and hire someone to protect against this because of the work the rest of us did. That's the way she looks at the world.
Do you think she really looks at the world that way, or do you think that she knows that kind of rhetoric plays with dumb people?
It's really difficult to tell. But it's grotesque that plays with anybody at all.
And by the way, can we continue to remind people that the top 1% of wage earners pay somewhere in the neighborhood of, 50%?
At least.
Of the income taxes in this country?
Yeah. Well, and my favorite line in all of this is, you don't have to worry that marauding bands will come and seize everything at your factory. Yes, you do. They're called OSHA. They're called the EPA. I'm serious.
Yeah.
They're government agencies that can walk into your business and find you for some bullshit and bleed you dry.
Yeah. I mean, it really is the closest thing to legalized mafia that you will ever run into.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice business you have there. Sure would be a shame if something happened to it.
Yeah. What's that over there in the corner? That could be a hazardous substance. We're going to have to investigate. This is what goes on. They show up at your place of business, knock on your door, and if you don't know what to do, they waltz right in. Start poking their nose anywhere they want. And you know they're not leaving without finding something.
Would they have to justify their position?
Absolutely. No. I was in a good mood when we started all this. But, I mean, the one thing I'll take heart in is I don't think she stands a chance against Trump, even if she is able to win the primary.
Oh, it's not going to be her.
No, you're already saying no.
No, listen, I think that...
No Kahanas, we should call her?
No, there's no way that the left stands for, her story, riding the Native American wave into office, into her job at, was it Harvard?
Yes.
They aren't going to stand for that. Especially there are going to be so many fresh, newer faces that can run. I mean, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Beto O'Rourke.
According to CNN today, this is how many people are officially running.
Okay. 9
on the Democrat side. One of them's already dropped out. Someone I've never heard of, Richard Ojeda, who's a former congressional candidate from West Virginia. He dropped out on the 25th.
Huh.
Okay. Huh. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 6 that have officially running, including our friend Richard Ojeda, who already dropped out, and then 3 that have announced the exploratory committees. So Elizabeth Warren falls into that category. So she's not official yet. I don't really understand the distinction.
Well, and then
it's got to be a money thing.
Yeah, and then there's news that the former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz may run as an independent, which Democrats are freaking out about that.
I love it.
Yeah, and the thing that I find fascinating about this is, people, I don't know enough about Howard Schultz's politics other than I'm sure that he's probably a leftist, just based on the crap that goes on at Starbucks or has gone on at Starbucks.
Yeah, we're going to shut down every location for diversity training for a day.
Yeah, but I heard one of his, he said the most pressing issue for America is our national debt, which shocked me. And really, I mean, if you're looking, I talked to a good friend of mine last night who is a conservative who didn't vote for Trump.
Okay.
I think she voted for Evan McMullin.
No, somebody actually voted for him.
Oh, yeah, there are people. Listen, I had one person who worked for the Evan McMullin campaign tell me with a straight face that he was going to be president of the United States. And I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. I mean, think about this, and I don't want to, go too much into the past here, but you have to think about how this was supposed to go down. So Evan McMullin was going to win Utah. And that was going to be enough to where there wouldn't be enough votes for anyone to win the presidency, right? And so there would have to be a negotiation, and Republicans were going to have to turn their back on the base of the party who voted for Donald Trump to vote for Evan McMullin as a compromise candidate? What would happen to the Republican Party if they turned their backs on the votes of, say, 60 million Republican voters, or I shouldn't say Republican voters, but 60 million voters who voted for Donald Trump, many of them, most of them, Republicans, because Evan McMullin won, say, 17,000 more votes than a competitor in Utah? What happens to the Republican Party at that point? You think that's going to happen? Is that a realistic thing to have happen? Of course it isn't. But some of these people actually believed it, that this could possibly happen. So I cracked up like you just did at the thought of that happening. So anyway, you've got you've got people in the never Trump wing of the Republican Party, and you have moderate Democrats who, especially in the Midwest, the people who would want to vote for a Joe Donnelly in Indiana, or a Claire McCaskill in Missouri, but see that the Democratic Party has been taken over by complete fucking nut jobs.
Yes.
Goddamn lunatics. And they think to themselves, well, I remember not too long ago there were people like Joe Lieberman in the Democratic Party. There were moderate Democrats. If they see someone like Howard Schultz run as an independent, and he says to Republican never Trump voters, boy, I'm really concerned about the national debt. And then he comes out with opinions, positions that are moderate. And he's not a slave to the Democratic Party. He would be a real threat to take some votes, I believe, away from Trump, but many more, I believe, from the people, the tribal Democrats that always vote Democrat year in, year out, but they just can't, and they can't pull themselves away from voting Democrat. But here's a guy who seems like he's a Democrat and he's palatable. He's not a fucking AOC nut job.
Yeah, he could be a real spoiler. That's why I'm looking at an article in Vanity Fair. Is the billionaire ex-CEO of Starbucks the next Jill Stein?
Well, see, and that's
they still hate her.
Yeah, they still hate her. And that's the other thing, too. Say I'm wrong, because I'm surprised that he would say the national debt is our, one of the biggest. So it's like, oh, that's kind of a conservative position. But if he ends up being like Jill Stein, a lefty, could be in the Green Party, then yeah, you're right. It could be a situation where not only does he steal, well, I shouldn't say steal, but he siphons votes away from the Democratic Party. But the other thing that he could do, because he has that kind of money, they're going to have to put him on the debate stage. I mean, there's no way that he's not getting on that stage, So maybe it's a situation where he drags the Democrat in the race even further to the left, because there's always this phenomenon where during the primaries, the leftist, the Democrat will move further and further to the left to get the nomination, and once they get to the nomination, they try to center themselves a little bit. But if they have an independent lefty with a lot of money, continuing to this guy or this woman isn't progressive, I'm the true progressive in the race. And then they try to out-loony each other and make Trump look sane.
It's going to be so entertaining.
Oh, my God. I'm a firm believer, and I wasn't so sure even 2 or 3 months ago, Trump's going to win in 2020, unless there's something, it's so hard to predict these things. Here we are barely into 2019. I mean, there could be a huge recession that pops up, they could have some sort of foreign policy catastrophe that we have no idea that could happen. But if things stay the same, he's getting reelected.
I agree with you.
Who do you think, if you had to put your money on a candidate right now, who do you think gets the nomination on the Democratic side?
Right now, it looks like Kamala Harris. The
Okay.
network seemed to be all in for her.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the huge social justice push.
Wow.
We've got to check as many of the minority boxes as possible. And I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but her mother's Indian, from India,
Mm-hmm.
and her father's Jamaican. So she's a double minority. She's a woman. That's all pretty good.
I mean, and that's why
As far
Elizabeth
as they're
Warren doesn't have a
concerned.
chance.
I think so, too.
So then the question becomes vice president.
That'll be the real bloodbath. Well, I guess the second bloodbath, because I think that to get to the nomination is going to be ugly.
Here's a fun name to throw out there. Al Franken.
Yeah, I don't think so.
You don't think so? You don't think think I could rehabilitate Al Franken? Because he's
No, I think I honestly think if it's Kamala, she needs somebody with military experience as her running mate. I think that's a huge hurdle that people have in their heads electing a woman, is that we, unlike Europe, because everyone's like, oh, they have all these female prime ministers. Yeah, they're not the heads of their militaries, though. The way that we're set up here, the president is the commander in chief. And this is something that Camille Paglia pointed out years ago, that people would have a problem with voting for Hillary because of that. And so Hillary went off and got her little foreign policy experience, which I guess she can then parlay into knowing how to run our military, which, all of her military adventures turned out pretty well. Everything she wanted was just grand. Ask the people that are now being sold in the open air slave markets in Libya what they think about her being in charge of a military. But I do think it's a decent point to make.
Well, and I think,
So-
listen, anybody that read those emails, too, it seemed like her only experience as Secretary of State was replying to emails saying, yes, print that.
Yeah, where's my tea? But I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the relationship is like with Kamala and Tulsi Gabbard, because that's what Tulsi has. She's a vet. Mm-hmm. I can't remember how many tours she did, but that could play to her advantage if there's any thought to those kind of things. But I do think it does become an issue, depending on whether or not Trump has successfully pulled all the troops out of the Middle East by then. Maybe it's not so much of an issue. Because Reuters reported over the weekend that they're now talking about a deal to get all the troops out of Afghanistan in 18 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. Does that take that off the table in people's minds? So we don't need somebody that we actually could put in charge of the military. Look, we've just had this lunatic Trump in charge of the military for 4 years. And not only did he not start World War III, he's now pulled all the troops home.
Wow. Yeah, it's a good question. I think that, listen, they can't, they gotta have either a sitting senator or governor, preferably with military experience. I don't think that they could have like two fresh faces. I don't think that they could, let's put Beto O'Rourke on the ticket. And I'm trying to, what name popped into my head, and I had to Google to see how old he was or is Colin Powell.
Oh, God.
But Colin Powell's 81.
No.
You believe Colin Powell's 81 years old?
I can believe it.
God, we're all getting old.
Well, maybe they give good old Uncle Joe his old house back. Not that he has any military experience, but he'll tell you that he did. I'm sure he can quickly steal someone's life story. It was a great military background.
Oh, hey, John Kerry's available.
Oh, yeah. He served in Vietnam, you know.
That's right. No, this is going to be so much fun watching this. 4 years ago, well, not 4 years ago, but for the primaries in 2016, I went to Iowa for the caucuses. And,
I remember that.
And I went. Let's see. I went to a Donald Trump event. I went to a Chris Christie event. Carly Fiorina event. Went to a Rand Paul event that got canceled because he was dropping out of the race the next day. And a Ted Cruz event. And I think this year I may go back to Iowa and just go to the Democrat events just to check it out.
Do you want to borrow my Make America Great Again hat? That you got me in Iowa.
Yeah, gotcha. I got you that in Iowa from a guy outside the event that just kept saying, bomb the shit out of ISIS. Over and over again. That was his sales pitch. Bomb the shit out of ISIS. And then I felt bad. I got you that hat, and apparently it wasn't a genuine Make America Great Again hat.
Oh, I don't care. Some cheap Chinese knockoff. It still does the trick. I'm still too afraid to wear it outside.
Yeah, just look at it that way. I got it for you in Iowa.
Oh, I love it. I think it's great.
During primary season. So, no, but it'll be interesting to see who they pick. We are over 50 minutes in, Tracy. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, I would like to talk about the pre-dawn raid on Friday morning of Roger Stone.
Okay.
Which just it cracked me up because normally I wake up and the first thing I do is after I brush my teeth and deal with other bathroom things is get on Twitter and see what the hell's going on. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I see is CNN's got exclusive footage of the raid that morning. And I thought, what the hell is this? And in my mind, this whole big spectacle of go get some guy that's in his mid-60s, rouse him from bed when he's known that he's going to be arrested for 2 years now.
Yeah.
Hasn't tried to run away or anything like this. And I believe he said he doesn't own any guns or anything like this. So I don't understand why you need to show up with that much force. I might be lying about that, but I thought I read it somewhere.
Well, I've seen footage of him going to the I lied. I didn't actually see it. I heard about this footage with him and Alex Jones going to the gun range and shooting guns. Yeah.
But I go to the range. I don't own a gun. It is possible.
Oh, no, I get that. So, I mean, if there's footage of you on a gun range, then we need to have 38 federal agents storm your house because you've been seen with a gun before, Tracy.
But I got to thinking that all of this is just somebody's thinking down the road to what the movie about this looks like. And that's a really good scene.
Yeah. Him standing there in his pajamas eating a piece of cold pizza.
That would have been great. He's like, yeah, what can I do for you?
Oh, finally you guys showed up.
We don't want any Girl Scout cookies. Slam the door in their face. No, and he's out, 3 hours later on bail?
Yeah. And this is the
thing. He's so dangerous.
Yeah, this is the thing that drives me crazy about tribalism. How you saw people on the left and some on the right, but it was mostly lefties, celebrating not only the fact that he got arrested, but how he was treated. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm no fan of Huma. Mm-hmm. Abedin, Huma. Mm-hmm. But, there was that whole thing with that other computer that she had and how Anthony Weiner had access to it and all the classified information, how it was mishandled while she was Hillary Clinton's pool girl. Mm-hmm. If they would have what was it, 18 agents? I don't remember the number, but a ridiculous amount of FBI agents showed up at Huma's front door, armed to the teeth. I would have sat back and said, okay, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's absolutely ridiculous that they would send, they would, all this would go down that way. All they had to do was tell him, you need to report, we're going to arrest you, and he would have reported on his own. But that wouldn't have given CNN, I've got a new nickname for them. I'm sure somebody else has already used it before. The Cable Narrative Network. Oh,
that's pretty good. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, the Cable Narrative Network, CNN, their footage, the pre-dawn raid, like it was the Branch Davidian compound. Right. Wouldn't have given them that footage. So I would hope that people on the right, if something like that happened to Uma, that people would be, oh, that's ridiculous. Why are they sending agents armed to the teeth to her house? But I saw it on the left. It's like, oh, you know what? Don't care. He's an asshole. He has it coming to him. Wow.
Well, they should have felt bad for those poor FBI agents because guess what? They were furloughed. They're not getting paid. So there was an article 2 days prior to this that ran in The Atlantic with the headline, "The wheels of justice are grinding to a halt."
Of course.
And then the subhead is, FBI agents say the government shutdown is costing them confidential sources, postponing indictments and shutting down investigations. Okay, so they're postponing all this other stuff, losing sources, all this, but we can find the prioritize this. We're going to go. I mean, this is just insane to me. These guys aren't getting paid. This whole article is them whining about all this stuff and, everything is getting scuttled. We're not arresting people. That's what that means when they say they're postponing indictments. And then, Roger Stone should be indicted tomorrow. Yeah, we got to get on this. We can't wait till the government opens back up. He's a flight risk.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they released him on $250,000 bond.
Right, so you have to put up 10%. So he walked out of there paying $25,000. And I read his indictment. It's absurd. First of all, it's confusing as hell because it's, person number 1 and person number 2 are talked about. And then there's organization 1 and this. Just tell me who the hell these people are. Like, we already know one of them is Jerome Corsi. And organization 1 is WikiLeaks. And so this is all about he supposedly lied in front of a congressional committee about his communications about WikiLeaks.
I didn't know that was a crime anymore. I don't know anybody can go in front of Congress and lie. I thought that was the thing. It was what you do.
You'd think. I mean, we watched Clapper do it. We watched Brennan do it. We watched Hillary do it. Well, no, but Roger Stone, he's way more dangerous than any of those 3 people that I just named.
Yeah.
His body count is higher than theirs as well. But yeah, it's I think it's 5 counts of lying and witness tampering, which was him telling Corsi that he could assert his Fifth Amendment right if he wanted to. So imagine that. That's tampering. Oh, hey, by the way, Fingers, did you know that if you're called in front of Congress, you don't have to say anything? Oh, you just tampered there. It's so absurd. And everybody's celebrating this. Or so we're closer to Trump than ever before.
Yeah. Well, that gets the national conversation away from talking about those Catholic boys in Kentucky.
Yes. It does.
You can't tell me, and I know it makes me sound like a conspiracy loon, but you can't tell me there isn't any thought put into that. Oh, my gosh. It's been a bad week. And then on top of it, okay, so who tipped off CNN? I mean, I'm getting...
it's got to be somebody
in the
Mueller team? FBI or in the Mueller team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting sick and tired of, there are people at CNN going, oh, no, it's just good reporting. Oh, stop it.
Yeah, we follow grand jury proceedings very closely, and there was some weird stuff. Those are sealed.
Yeah.
So, no, they're lying about how they know about it. Ugh. But do we really need that footage? I mean, what purpose does that serve?
It gets the base of the Democratic Party whipped into a frenzy, which you got to constantly do that. You got to constantly keep them going. And also, the raid, is designed to try to intimidate Roger Stone.
Does Roger Stone strike you as someone who's easily intimidated?
No. But
no,
listen,
he's
I don't care
loving this.
I don't care who you are. 18 federal agents show up armed to the teeth. That will probably scare the shit out of you for a little bit. And then once it's over, you're like, oh, screw you.
I think it's scary if it's unexpected.
Yeah.
But he's been counting down the days.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't be surprised. He likes to consider himself like a fashion guru. He probably already had his outfit picked out sitting next to the door. That's what I would have done if I was him. I mean, he's quite the smart ass. Just be like, oh, hang on, I've had this waiting, and just pull out the dry cleaning bag. Would you guys like some coffee?
I would have been wearing a Clinton Foundation pin.
No, he should have had on the Bill Clinton is a rapist t-shirt. I did see somebody, I don't know if, I think it was a real photo. I want to say that somebody had a picture of him when he came out after posting bond. He came out like throwing up the peace signs,
like Nixon. Yeah.
Yeah. And somebody had a sign in the background that said, lock him up. Yeah. This is such good trolling. Yeah. I can appreciate it.
Oh.
But, oh God.
Well, we're an hour in.
Yeah. All right.
Well, what were you going to say? I didn't mean to.
Oh, no. The next on the list is Don Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Seems to be the wisdom that they're going to try to say he lied to Congress now, too.
See, and this is where, again, people are just going to lose their shit. If they go after Don Jr. for lying to Congress, look, nobody should lie to Congress.
But Congress should quit lying to us.
There's that, too. But don't hand me this line of bullshit that we need to bring these people in because they lied to Congress when we watched repeatedly Democrats lie to Congress, and there are absolutely there's no ramifications for that whatsoever. I mean, you had Democrats getting subpoenaed by Congress who completely ignored it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally cool. Totes cool, the kids would say. And now you're, bringing people in because they lied to Congress because they're affiliated with President Trump. Or shit.
Well, and the other thing they want us all to believe, because I watched a little bit of Chuck Todd, what does Trump call him, Sleepy Eyes, this morning?
Uh-huh.
The other thing we're all supposed to still believe is that WikiLeaks is an agent of the Russian government.
Yeah.
So he asked Marco Rubio this morning if it should be a crime to work with WikiLeaks. Do you want to know what Rubio said?
Oh, this should be good. What did he say?
He said, I certainly think if you're wittingly doing it, it should be considered as such. I mean, you're participating in the work of a foreign intelligence agency. That's quote verbatim. I rewound it and watched it a bunch of times so I could get it all.
For Christ's sake. Wow.
They work for Putin. If that's the case, why the hell is Assange living in the Ecuadorian embassy in London?
Yeah.
To keep up some ruse where they've cut off his internet and he's not, barely allowed visitors, hasn't been outside in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I'm guessing he'd be pretty safe in Moscow right now.
Yeah, or any one of their little satellite puppet states.
Yeah.
They still have some of those. Like, he could be living it up in Venezuela.
Right?
Yeah. But this is madness, and everybody's just accepted this as true. And then Marco Rubio, oh, yeah. That should absolutely be a crime.
Rubio's a piece of shit.
Yes, he is. Maybe he can be the Democrat vice president nominee.
I hear they throw a hell of a foam party in Moscow. We have anything else?
I think we're good.
Remember, you can always catch the Enough Already podcast on Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn, iTunes, YouTube, BitChute, and Google Play. Did I miss anything?
Nope.
Final thoughts?
I got nothing.
All right. She's Tracy. I'm Fingers. We'll be back soon with another Enough Already.